Hey everyone, I'm Emily Castle. I observed at Providence Montessori School in the 2 to 3-year-old classroom using the Itersratingscreen scale. Of course, as all of you guys know, this is a scale that determines the quality of care and the environment provided by the classroom that's being observed. The infant-toddler environment rating scale can be used for self-assessment of one's own classroom or for directors and programs coordinators to determine which areas need the most assistance. The center is a Montessori school, and it's located in Lexington. The philosophy of the toddler program at Providence is that when the basic physical, emotional, and social needs of a young child are consistently, respectfully, and joyfully met, the child learns to trust. Feeling safe and secure, the child can then begin to explore all the wonders of his or own self and world. These experiences shape the child's impressions as he or she develops and grows. So let's move on to tuition at Providence. The tuition is $9,839 per year, and that's from August to June. They are out for summer break for the whole month of July. I talked with a lead teacher who's been at Providence for 5 years. She just recently finished her Montessori training in St. Louis and moved over from the younger toddler classroom 2 weeks prior to my visit. So now she's the lead teacher of the classroom I observed. And she's accompanied by an assistant teacher. And when either of them are out sick or anything, they have regular substitutes that alternate classrooms, kind of like a floater. So whenever help is needed, they're available. There were only 11 2- and 3-year-olds that were in the classroom. And let's move on to the furnishing, space and furnishing section. This section scored a 5.2 average score. There were plenty of child-side seats for the children, but there weren't very many comfortable seating options for the adults. No pictures of the children or family members were observed, and none of the child's artwork was displayed on the child's eye level. If I were to make any recommendations for change in this area, it would be to display pictures and artwork at the child's eye level around the classroom. And this is just an example. The picture here is an example of a mobile that I saw hanging from the ceiling, and then they had a few plants and things hanging from the ceiling too, so I gave credit for that. Let's move to the next portion. Personal care routines. This classroom scored an average of 6.8 in this area. I observed one drop-off while I was there, and both teachers were very friendly to the parent, of course, and they seemed to have a really good relationship with the parents. I was able to find out that at the beginning of each year, the teachers do home visits with each child in their classroom, and they talk to the parents about the child's napping and eating habits. I thought this was really cool because we just don't do that at my center, so I thought that was interesting. Let's see. Basic sanitary practices were also observed throughout the morning, and independence was encouraged in all personal care routines. Children asked for help and were helped if they needed it, but the teachers encouraged them to try it first on their own. The potty-trained children used the restroom as needed, and the younger ones with diapers were checked frequently. Children had access to snack and the water jug in the picture right here at all times during the morning, so they could just come over and use the restroom, wash their hands, and get a drink of water whenever they needed. Also, something that was really cool is that they were making biscuits, and you'll see later on in this presentation, but they were making homemade biscuits, and after they were baked by the teacher, of course, they were able to eat them throughout the morning. So I thought that was pretty cool. Let's see, we'll move on to listening and talking. This area scored an average of 6.6. I observed the biscuit activity I was just talking about, and the children were able to make their own biscuits, but I observed a really cool vocabulary learning experience with the children, and so I recorded that down in my notebook. So one of the teachers was standing there, and the little boy was like asking how to make the biscuits, and she was like explaining to the kid, you need to knead the dough, like after they had stirred it up and everything. And the child was like, well, what does kneading mean? So she explained what the word kneading was, and she showed it to him, demonstrated it to all the children, and then she stepped back and observed, and they kneaded the dough, and then they were standing there saying, I'm kneading the dough, I'm kneading the dough. So that was a really cool vocabulary experience I observed. But the staff did a great job of getting on the child's eye level and really using conversation that provoked thought and promoted conversation amongst the children. So, okay, so the activity section scored a 5.6, and the classroom scored high in most areas of the section, but the dramatic play portion, there were no dolls in the classroom that were accessible to the children, and I did see some dolls up in storage, but they weren't out for the children to actually play with, so I didn't give credit there. There were no dress-up clothes, play buildings, or play phones, or anything of that matter. And I asked the teacher about it, and she said that she believes instead of pretend play, that you should let the child actually perform the task. So like she provided materials to wash dishes and wash windows and make the biscuits that I showed pictures of earlier. And the children actually sat down and served one another like real food instead of pretending to serve each other food. Also, this classroom scored lower in the diversity portion because there weren't any dolls accessible to the children. And I couldn't find 10 examples of the categories of diversity in books and pictures and posters and stuff. So, but there were plenty of art, music, sand, water play, and nature offered in the classroom. But if I were to change anything about the classroom, I think it probably would be to offer more dress-up clothes. Even if it's just like business attire and community helper outfits, or just hats, ties, purses, gloves, anything of that matter. So here are some pictures that I took while I was there. This is just an art activity they were doing with glue and cutting tissue paper and gluing it to the box and stuff. And then here's their outdoor sand area. It was like a huge underground sand pit. It was really cool. And then some blocks they had, and then their outdoor playground equipment. Okay, there we go. So, activities continued. This is the window washing thing I was telling you about right here. And then here's some nature they brought inside for the kids to take care of. So they can get water out of this dispenser right here and water the plants. So I thought that was pretty cool. I just took a few pictures while I was there to show you guys a little more what it was like. Moving on to interactions. This section scored a perfect 7. The staff were attuned, attentive, and showed approval of the children, so they used the 3 A's. When the children were speaking, the staff got on the eye level of the children, and when the children were in danger, staff made sure to take necessary precautions to avoid the injuries. I observed younger toddlers putting a heart-shaped gem in her mouth, and the teacher, she just said, you know, those are not for eating. That's not a safe choice. If I see you put that in your mouth again, then we're going to have to take them away. And then she asked the child if she was hungry, and she said, there are biscuits that you may eat if you're hungry. But the children were respectful towards staff and one another, and they helped each other with certain tasks. Like I observed one of the children putting a little girl's shoe on for her, and I thought that was sweet. So they also helped each other like reach things, and they worked together to perform certain tasks. So, all right, program structure. The class earned a perfect 7 in this section as well. The schedule for the classroom was pretty rigid, but at the same time it was also really flexible. They offered outside time to all, but those who wanted to come in from the playground had that option. Like we went outside around, I guess it was like 10:30ish, and a lot of the kids wanted to stay outside the whole time. I guess it was like 55 degrees the day that I went to observe, so it was kind of nice out. And a lot of the kids wanted to stay outside, but there were a few that had runny noses and didn't really feel like playing outside. So one of the teachers took 4 or 5 kids inside, and then the other teacher stayed outside. And they offered to one another, like, I'll go inside if you feel like coming outside, just like come grab me or whatever. So they worked really, really well together. Like I said, it was rigid, but at the same time flexible. So the teachers split the workload, and they were really respectful and encouraging toward one another. So that was refreshing and nice to see. Let's see. All right, parents and staff. This section scored a 6.3. As I mentioned in the personal care routine section, I discussed with the teacher about the parent-staff relationships, and I was able to find out that they do their home visits with the children at the start of every year. So that's where the parents and the staff will discuss the sleeping and eating habits of the children, and then the teacher and the child are able to become more familiar with one another. So higher education is not required upon their hire date, but it's preferred, and the director would like for all long-term staff and salary staff to earn the Montessori training and certificate, and they will pay for that, I found out. So, and the staff meet annually for personal evaluations. There's a PTO at Providence, and like I discussed earlier, they have regular substitutes that the children are very familiar with. So, okay. All right, so the total and average score, the subscale / total score was 238, and I divided that by 38, which is the number of items scored, and that gave me the average score of 6.26 for this classroom, and I think it was well deserved. So one way early literacy could be improved upon in this classroom is more group time conversation. They sang a lot of songs during their group time, which I thought was great, and they danced a lot, but they didn't really take turns talking amongst the children. Like the teacher talked most of the time, and they just mostly sat there and listened to her talk and sing and stuff. So I think it would be cool to somehow incorporate like a storytelling time or something for the kids to stand up and talk and ask questions and stuff like that. I think that would be a good way to incorporate literacy into the classroom. Another way could be to incorporate more books into the group time in the classroom routine. They had plenty of books available in the classroom, but they didn't really read them out loud as a group and discuss the meaning of the book and the pictures and all of that. So I think the class could really benefit from something like that. And this concludes my infant toddler rating scale screencast. So thank you guys for joining me.